Hello and welcome. My name is Erin Gevirtz of Erin Gevirtz Educational Consulting, and I am here to share with you today a couple of tips and things to keep in mind as you wrap up this high school admission or middle school admissions process. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any further questions about this process, or if you're looking for support with the middle or high school placement in the upcoming season. So where are we? Well, first of all, it's very important to remember to celebrate all of the hard work that you and your family have put into this process so far, with the essays, the interviews, the visits, the research, everything from fall until now. It's important to remember that the hard work that you've put in will pay off. So where are we? Well, we are waiting. Admissions teams are currently reading applications, going through their sorting and review process. And remember, it's their job to make you feel welcome and wanted at the school. So any further questions that you have or clarifying things that you might want to know, now is a good time to reach out to them. In the meantime, it's also important that you double check that everything is in and complete. Most schools will let you know if they're missing something, but it never hurts to double check as well. So you want to make sure that you're following up with each school that you've applied to, checking to make sure all those green boxes on Ravenna or whatever platform they're using are checked off. And if you decided not to apply to one of the schools, or your child is absolutely not want to attend one of the schools you've applied to, make sure to withdraw your application as soon as possible so that schools don't spend time debating a student who absolutely doesn't want to be there. Also, make sure that you have a clear and efficient way for schools to get in contact with you, whether that is a cell phone or an email. You should be checking your messages or your emails daily. If you're a family who applied for tuition assistance, it's important to ensure that the financial aid documents that you've done are complete. And now that it's mid-February, your 2021 taxes for last year should be uploaded now. If you haven't done them yet, or if there's going to be a delay in completing them, make sure to let schools know when they can expect them, because they cannot offer you tuition assistance without those updated documents. It's also important to ensure that you've completed the forms for each school. Different schools use different forms, whether the PFS, TADS, FAST, or FACS. Make sure that you have the correct one done so that your family's need can be met by the school if they determine you're a good match for them. So if you're in the Bay Area this year, decision letters will be sent out at 4 o'clock on March 18th of 2022 of this year. Now, there's a couple of different types of letters that families will receive. So the first is accept. Okay, so if you didn't apply for aid, a school might accept your family and welcome them into their school for next year. That's one type of letter. Another is if your family did apply for tuition assistance or financial aid, whatever schools are calling it, schools will send out an accept with an offer. Okay, so this is saying, here's a package that we think that will meet your family's need, as well as an acceptance letter. There are some schools this year that will accept and then have families on a financial aid wait list. So, so if you get one of those, make sure that you let the school know that you want to wait to be on that wait list for that aid should it become available. The other type of letter is a wait list or a wait pool. Schools are calling it wait pool now because it's not a definitive list of students who might get in, because it really depends on who says yes and who says no from their initial round of letters that go out. So if you do decide that your family wants to be in the wait pool for a school, you absolutely have to let them know that you want to be in it. Otherwise, they're assuming that you've accepted an offer elsewhere. And then the final kind of letter is a deny. And a deny means that the school decided that your student or family was not the right match for them. And deny means game over. So if you do get deny letters from a school, it's not a good idea to reach out to them and say, please reconsider my student, because it's game over at that point. Once those letters go out on that Friday, the 18th at 4 o'clock, you have about a week to make your final decision. So at least this is here in the Bay Area. Boarding schools are different. So make sure that you know the deadlines for your schools, because if you miss a deadline, there goes your opportunity. So here in the Bay Area, the enrollment agreements are due at 12 o'clock on the Thursday, that following Thursday, for families who've been offered aid, and that Friday for families who do not need the aid. Now, it's important that you and your family are considering some things as you move through this process. So here are 4 key questions for you to consider over this next couple of weeks. The first thing is, what do I need to remember about interacting with schools in these last few weeks? So obviously making sure that everything is submitted, as we already discussed. Thank you notes go a long way with this process. So if your student has not written any thank you notes for interviews or visits or anything, now's a good time for them to write them a thank you note, thanking them for this process, for having how much they've learned, and reinstating why they are so excited about the school. Be specific with these thank you notes. The second key question is, what should I consider as I strategize possibilities for my candidate, right? So it's important, if you're playing the odds, that you're playing them thoughtfully. Okay, don't think you can game the system. Schools accept who they want to accept. Make sure that you have a plan B. It's very important that your child has a school to go to for next year. So if you haven't already, make sure that you've applied for the public schools in your area. The third question is thinking about, how do schools announce decisions? And how do they even make these decisions? Well, most schools are creating a class based on, some schools have a rising, for example, if you're in a school that applying to school that has a middle school, they're going to have a certain group of students moving up from 8th grade into their 9th grade, right? So they're going to have a limited number of 9th grade spots, and they're looking for students to help to diversify and add to the already great students that they have. So they're looking at gender, they're looking at ethnicity and race, they're looking at which middle schools kids are coming from, they're looking for kids who want to get involved in different things, they're looking for kids who are interested in theater and the arts and the visual arts and sports and debate and student government. Maybe they need a tuba player, right? We don't know exactly what schools are looking for, but schools are looking to create a well-rounded, balanced class of students who they think will do well academically and social emotionally in their school communities. So there's a lot of different factors that kids, that are being considered of the kids as the schools are preparing to announce their decisions. A lot of schools will say that they make their financial aid decisions separately from the acceptance decisions, which basically just means they don't want the families to think that the money is affecting their ability to get in. So those schools who are sending 2 separate letters, though they'll be together on Ravenna, for example, those schools who are sending 2 separate letters, they're just wanting families to know that they could come to their school if the money is available, for example, with that wait list. So some schools want you to know that separately. And so make sure that you check all of your emails and all of the different letters on the different portals of each school to find out all of your decisions on that Friday. Now, if your family did apply for financial aid, it's also very important that you've completed all the necessary steps. So have you completed the paperwork? Do you know what your expected family contribution is? So at the end of the PFS, they take all of your information and they calculate it, and they say, this is based on your information, what we say that your family can afford to pay. If there's a great discrepancy between what you think that you can pay and what this form is saying that you can pay, and remember, if you're in the Bay Area, schools take that into account, right? We are in the Bay Area. It's a very expensive place to live. But if you think that you can afford $2,000 and this form is saying you can afford $20,000, it's a big discrepancy. So make sure that you're talking with schools about this. And if there is that discrepancy, make sure that you have documented proof showing what you can afford to pay, right? Remember, it's not just what you want to pay, it's what you actually can afford to pay. So having a breakdown of your expenses will certainly help once those letters come out, for you to be able to approve and give numbers to the numbers folks in those offices to have a further conversation about the money. Also, make sure that you have a deposit ready. So you should plan to pay a deposit if you accept an offer of about 10% of the cost of the school. So, or of the cost of the offer. So you need that deposit ready to go in order to accept that offer. And that deposit will go towards your tuition for the following year. And then finally, if you do get a letter that's from the school that's a lower amount than what you were expecting, it's important that you reach out to the school immediately to let them know, hopefully with that budget sheet, like I was talking about, what you can afford to pay and how much more you would need to be able to make it work for your family, so that they can see if that's something that's reasonable for them to be able to offer to you, or if there's somewhere that you can meet in the middle. So a couple of if-then scenarios. It's really important that as a family, you're having some conversations, right? So I strongly encourage all families to go through the different scenarios that might pop up. If you applied to 5 schools, have the conversation. Okay, if I got into these 2, which one would I choose and why? If I got into these 3, which one would I choose and why? If I got into this one and I'm on the wait list of this one, am I going to wait? How long are we going to wait as a family, right? Because you have that whole week technically to wait. But if you wait past the deadline for this school that you're not yet into, you might lose this other offer if the time passes. Okay, so make sure you're having those conversations now when it's not the most stressful time, before the week, so that you can start to prepare for what might come. If you have any further questions or would like any additional help with wrapping up this process, please feel free to reach out to me at ErinGevertz.com. That's GEVERTZ.com. And I wish you the best with the end of this process. It's a very exciting process. It's a really exciting time for you and your family to start to think about what the next educational steps of your journey might be. Good luck.